Have you ever felt like you were standing in the center of a crowded room and yet somehow no one actually saw you? Your presence blending into the wallpaper of life while your heart silently cried for someone to notice. It is a most peculiar suffering, one that does not howl in the daylight but whispers alone in the dark, and it is precisely there, in that unnoticed corner, where the God of all creation bends low and calls your name. I have long believed that the invisible ones are often the most adored by heaven, the ones whose struggles go unseen, whose faith is quiet, whose acts of obedience never make the headlines. You may not be on their guest lists or in their conversations, yet before you ever learn to write your own story, God had already etched your worth into the palms of His hand. Long before you sought recognition, long before you wondered if you mattered, long before you questioned whether your life had weight, the Creator of galaxies had written your name into eternity. And because of this sacred truth, we begin our journey not by forcing the world to remember us, not by shouting our presence into spaces that barely notice, but by allowing our worth to be rooted in the only voice that truly matters, the one that speaks life and permanence, the one whose eyes see even the hidden places of our hearts. When Joseph was left in a pit, forgotten by his own blood, abandoned by those who should have loved him most, he might have believed their verdict, that he was disposable, worthless, unseen. Yet God saw differently. He saw a future king, a man whose trials would prepare him to save nations, a boy whose rejection would teach humility, patience, and reliance on divine provision. And perhaps the same is true of you. You stand unnoticed, hoping one day applause might rescue your heart. Yet I tell you, applause is a fleeting wind. It comes and it goes. It bends and breaks like brittle grass in the storm. But the approval of God is a steady rock, immovable, eternal, unshaken by circumstance or human opinion. Do not let their blindness cause you to misread your own reflection. Do not twist yourself into new shapes simply to fit into fragile expectations, to mold your character according to passing judgment, to contort your soul for a fleeting moment of recognition. You are not defined by those who ignore you. You are defined by the beauty and purpose of the one who never lets go, whose love does not falter, whose attention never wavers, whose commitment to you existed before the first breath you drew and will endure long after the applause of men has faded. If they must speak in silence, let them, for your identity is not at risk. Your value was sealed before the world ever opened its eyes to you. You were claimed long before you were celebrated, and you shall remain chosen even if no one else remembers to say your name. The quiet corners, the overlooked spaces, the unnoticed moments, these are where God often performs His greatest work. He notices the heart that perseveres without attention, the hand that serves without reward, the soul that prays without audience. It is there that the invisible are made seen in His timing. And in this revelation, you can breathe freely, knowing that your significance is not contingent upon the fleeting gaze of society. Your worth does not depend on the tally of acknowledgments or the tally of applause. It rests in the Creator who that invisibility equals insignificance. It is often a sacred assignment, a hidden preparation, a secret favor in disguise. The world may move on without noticing, yet every action you take in obedience, every choice you make in integrity, every small victory of the Spirit is seen and remembered in the courts of heaven. So when your heart aches because no one applauds, when your efforts go unacknowledged, when your value seems ignored, let your spirit lean into the assurance that God has not overlooked you. Let your soul rest in the truth that being unseen by the world does not diminish the eternal weight of your life. Your identity is woven from divine intention, and it cannot be erased by neglect. It cannot be diminished by ignorance. It cannot be silenced by indifference. The one who holds the stars in place holds you even more carefully, and in his hands, you are safe. You are cherished. You are known intimately and perfectly. We remember that Joseph's story did not end in the pit. His suffering was not meaningless. His invisibility was not ignored, and your journey is no different. The waiting, the quiet, the absence of human acknowledgement is part of the sacred shaping, the molding of character, the divine preparation for the life God intends for you. Let this knowledge anchor you when the world forgets. Let it lift you when others overlook. Let it sustain you when your heart longs for recognition that does not come from the crowd. God's affirmation is sufficient. His eye is fixed on you, and His love will not let you vanish unnoticed. So stand tall. Walk in the quiet confidence of being chosen, even when unseen. Move with the courage of one known by God. Continue your work. Continue your faith. Continue your love. Even if the world does not celebrate, for your life has eternal significance. Your name is written in the heavens, and nothing, no absence, no silence, no neglect, can erase the truth that you were designed, named, and adored by the one who matters most. So trust, wait, and rest in the certainty that the invisible are often the most treasured, and your story is already written, even if it is still being revealed. Have you ever wondered why the moments that hurt us most are not the ones filled with shouting, but the ones soaked in silence? When someone rolls their eyes, walks past our presence, or speaks to us as if we are an afterthought, the subtle dismissals that sting more than any open insult, our instincts scream to defend ourselves, to protest, to prove that we are not small, to reclaim our dignity in the eyes of the world. And yet I must ask you today, what if true strength is found not in a mighty reply, but in the mysterious power of restraint? The calm and quiet confidence that rests on knowing who you are and whose you are. If your heart is ready, even just a little, comment, "I am ready," or simply type the number 1 so I know you are here with me. Your presence is far more valuable than you may ever realize, and I do not wish to speak these words into the void. I thank you already for walking this road with me. Now, consider this. There was a man who stood accused, surrounded by mocking crowds. Their words cut deeper than swords. Yet, He spoke not a single defense. His silence did not reveal weakness, it revealed supreme confidence in who he was. Jesus did not need to match their tone because he rested secure in his Father's approval. He knew his worth was already established and did not require human validation. Dear friend, this is the paradox of the kingdom. The less you fight to be heard, the louder your worth resounds in heaven. The keener your insistence, the more weight your presence carries in the eternal balance. So let your calm become your shield. When someone dismisses you, underestimates you, or treats you like a burden, refuse the invitation to battle. You do not need to roar every time you are challenged. You do not need to mirror their contempt. You do not need to prove anything in the eyes of men. Your silence, when guided by sure identity and grounded in divine approval, becomes louder than the most polished speech. It speaks not to win a debate, but to declare a deeper truth. It says, I do not need your validation, for I belong to a higher throne. It says, my worth is anchored in eternity, not in the fleeting opinions of humans. The next time someone tries to pull you into their fire, pause it, breathe, and remember you have a choice. Use your words to defend what God has already secured, or use your silence to declare that your dignity does not sit in their hands. Let restraint become your strength. Let patience shape your response. Let the knowledge of divine favor guide every breath and action. This is not weakness. This is sacred power. It is the mastery of your spirit over your impulses, the quiet courage to rise above provocation, the wisdom to know that the battle for your soul is not won by shouting, but by holding firm in identity and grace. Remember that history is full of those who were underestimated, overlooked, and mocked, yet their impact endured precisely because they did not bend to every insult. They did not stoop to every confrontation. They preserved their energy for what mattered most, for what God had ordained. And this is the invitation for you today, to step into that same strength, to allow the quiet power of your life to declare truth more profoundly than words ever could, to rest in assurance that your value is established in the eternal, to act not out of impulse but out of purpose, to respond not out of anger but out of wisdom, to be unmoved by human dismissal, yet unwavering in your commitment to live rightly. Your silence becomes a statement, your restraint becomes a testimony, your composure becomes a banner that proclaims who you are and whose you are. And this is not passive living. It is active obedience. It is the cultivation of a character that will endure storms, criticism, and misunderstanding without faltering. Your calm presence in the midst of provocation confounds those who expect you to react. It challenges the patterns of contention. It demonstrates a higher standard, a higher power at work in you. So tag yourself with courage right now in the comments below. Write I am ready or type 1 if you desire to rise above petty arguments, if you long to step into a way of living that confounds this world, that refuses to be dragged into unnecessary battles. that refuses to let the smallness of others dictate the depth of your response. Your courage to respond, even in this tiny way, tells me that hope is stirring in you already. That a part of your spirit is leaning into strength, into wisdom, into the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your approval comes from heaven and not from applause or attention. And for that, I am deeply grateful. I rejoice that you are willing to embrace restraint, to choose the higher path, to allow your silence to speak with divine authority, for there is a sacred rhythm in living this way, a peace that surpasses understanding, a power that cannot be measured by human standards. This path does not require loud victories or constant acknowledgement. It requires faith, patience, and courage. And as you walk it, the atmosphere around you changes. Those who seek to provoke will see that their tactics cannot move you. Your inner life becomes untouchable, your worth untethered from the shifting sands of opinion. The more you practice restraint, the more you inhabit this sacred strength. The more your life itself becomes a sermon, a declaration of enduring faith, a testament that true power is not always visible, that the quiet heart carries more authority than the loudest voice. And so, in every interaction, every slight, every overlooked moment, remember that God sees, God honors, and God establishes your identity. Let this truth sink deep and let it guide your steps, your words, and your posture toward every challenge. In this, you discover the paradox that those who are patient, silent, and steadfast are in fact the most powerful, the most secure, the most radiant, and the most free. There is a peculiar ache that settles inside us when someone wounds our dignity and walks away untouched, leaving us simmering with quiet fury. Our natural instinct is not to pray, but to plot, to rehearse the scenarios in which justice is served. We imagine their downfall, their discomfort, their comeuppance, and secretly hope that they feel what they made us feel. Yet Christ turns to us with a command that is both terrifying and liberating. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. The mind recoils at such instruction because it feels like surrender, because it contradicts every instinct of retaliation and self-protection. Yet in the logic of heaven, blessing an enemy is not weakness. It is revolt, a refusal to participate in the chains of anger, a defiance of the natural cycle of hurt that perpetuates itself from heart to heart. When Stephen was dragged outside the city and stones began to crash against his body, he did not spit rage or accusation. He looked toward the sky and begged God not to hold this sin against them. The scene is haunting not because it is filled with tragedy, but because it reveals a power that hell cannot imitate. While others lifted stones, Stephen lifted prayer. And in that lifting, he found freedom. Dear friend, this is the battlefield of your own heart, the place where righteousness wrestles with resentment, where love collides with the impulse to retaliate. You may believe you cannot bless them because the pain still throbs, because the memory is raw, because the wound feels fresh. But what if the blessing is not for them at all? What if the blessing is the key that unlocks your own chain? You consider that each time you speak grace over someone who has diminished you, who has trampled your dignity, who has sought to define your value by their cruelty, you are not pretending the wound did not happen. Instead, you are declaring the wound will not become your master. The memory will not dictate your behavior. The injustice will not shape the contours of your future. Blessing removes the venom from the bite. It does not deny the pain, but neutralizes its power over your spirit. Hatred may feel strong. It may even feel righteous, but it only leads deeper into the pit. It binds you to the very thing that sought to harm you. Christ already rescued you from that captivity, and now he calls you to participate in that liberation. Today, I ask you to do the illogical, to practice the impossible. That is the essence of faith. Whisper a prayer over the one who forgot your worth, over the one who ignored your value, over the one who sought to diminish the light in you, to do it not because they deserve it, for they do not. You do it because you refuse to let bitterness design your future. Do it because your obedience to the Spirit matters more than the vindication your mind craves. Heaven watches such moments closely. Every act of secret mercy echoes louder than applause. Every silent blessing reverberates in eternity. Angels lean in to record it, not as a novelty, but as a testimony of the heart that refuses to be chained. You are not required to reconcile. You are not required to trust again. You are called only to keep your spirit clean, to refuse the contamination of anger and resentment, to remain untouchable by the bitterness that seeks to enslave. The next time their name stirs pain in your chest, when the memory flares, when your mind rehearses the offense, dare to bless them under your breath. That simple act shakes spiritual foundations. It reminds every dark force that you will not participate in its cycle, that you will not allow the injury inflicted upon you to become the soil in which hatred grows. Repay cruelty with blessing, and you become untouchable. Not because you won in their eyes, not because the world recognizes your restraint, but because you remained a child of God in yours, because your heart continues to beat in alignment with the eternal law of love, even when everything around you urges retaliation, because you chose mercy, even when your mind screams justice, because you refused to let someone else's sin define your walk. And in this choice lies freedom. The act of blessing is not passive. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your own soul, a refusal to surrender to the tyranny of offense, a bold proclamation that you will not allow your spirit to be shaped by the cruelty of others. Each time you bless in the quiet, your soul grows stronger, your resilience increases, and the fire that sought to consume you instead forges you into someone capable of reflecting the heart of God in a broken world. Consider that the power of a spoken blessing reaches farther than any accusation. It pierces darkness more effectively than any sharp word. It transforms what would have been poison into provision. It turns every slighting glance, every dismissive remark into a testimony of grace, a proof that you have learned the secret of heaven, the secret that the truly strong do not fight with fists or words, but with unyielding spirit and unwavering love. So when the next wound comes, when insult pierces, when injustice seems blatant, remember Stephen. Remember the man who faced mockery without retaliation. Remember that blessing is a weapon unlike any other. It is the power to claim victory over your own heart, the power to refuse captivity in bitterness, the power to rise above the predictable cycles of pain. Let it shape your reactions. Let it mold your character. Let it teach you that the kingdom of God operates on principles contrary to human instinct, that mercy is stronger than vengeance, that restraint is greater than rage, that prayer can lift mountains even in the absence of applause. Commit to bless, commit to pray, commit to declare under your breath that no wound will define you, that no enemy can dictate your peace, that your dignity is secure in God alone, for in doing so, you walk untouchable, free, and aligned with the eternal, and the world, though unaware, witnesses the quiet power that can only come from hearts surrendered to God, the true strength that refuses to be baited, the peace that defies the sting of offense. And the life that reflects Christ most clearly is one that blesses when it hurts most, loves when it is undeserved, prays when the heart cries for retaliation, and remains unshakable in the knowledge that God sees, God honors, and God's approval is sufficient for all. Have you ever stayed in a place long after your peace began to crumble, believing that faith required you to endure whatever another person chose to place upon your shoulders? Too many souls carry that confusion. They mistake Christian love for endless access. They think turning the other cheek means inviting a second strike. Yet the truth is, even Christ withdrew from those who sought to harm his mission. He walked away not out of fear, but out of divine focus. Dear listener, I ask you gently, have you allowed someone to treat your heart like an open corridor with no gate? If you have, then hear me. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. It is not poetic suggestion. It is holy command. You are called to be a living sanctuary, not a public hallway. Many years ago, I met a woman who told me she stayed in circles that drained her spirit because she feared setting boundaries would make her less like Jesus. But Jesus himself often slipped away from grasping crowds. He chose his company wisely. He did not let every voice shape his journey. He knew the importance of preserving sacred space within his own soul. There is strength in stepping back without slamming the door. Sometimes distance is not punishment, it is preservation. It is the careful cultivation of what is holy in your own story. Perhaps you have given and given, waiting for them to see your value. They may not see it until you step away, until you refuse to sacrifice your peace at the altar of another's disregard. Comment: If this is your season to draw holy boundaries, that simple act lets me know I am not speaking into emptiness. When you decide to protect the peace God placed inside you, you are not abandoning grace. You are stewarding it. You are acknowledging that the temple of your spirit is sacred, and while love requires generosity, it also requires discernment. Do not let guilt keep you trapped in cycles that suffocate your joy. Christ never asked you to lose your life to those who trample your soul. He asked you to lose your life in devotion to Him, and that kind of devotion includes wisdom, discernment, and courage. The boundary is not built from bitterness. It is shaped by love, a love for what God is doing in you, love for the calling He placed over you, a love for the holiness that He desires to cultivate in your heart. So if your heart trembles at the thought of stepping back, let that trembling lead you to prayer, not to paralysis. Let it move you into the hands of God, seeking His guidance for how and when to create space without regret. Comment now if you hear His whisper calling you to guard your heart. Your agreement matters to me. Your presence here tells me you are listening. It confirms that someone out there understands the delicate balance between love and self-protection. It reminds me that the message of careful stewardship of one's spirit resonates, that you are walking the path of obedience not only in devotion but in wisdom. In a world that often applauds endurance without discernment, your courage to step back is revolutionary. It is a quiet strength, a holy power that resists the pressure to sacrifice what is sacred to appease what is trivial. And as you take these steps, you remind yourself that God's ways are higher than human expectations. His plans are deeper than the immediacy of others' demands. His guidance is precise and filled with grace. The decision to set boundaries is never about withholding love. It is about honoring the love that God has already entrusted to you. It is a recognition that your spiritual, emotional, and mental well-being is essential to fulfilling the purpose He has designed for you. Every time you step back with prayer and humility, you are choosing to prioritize your alignment with God rather than the approval of people. The strength of this choice grows over time. It becomes a rhythm in your life, a sacred discipline, a daily practice of stewardship over your heart. When the noise of others' expectations rises, when the pull to please becomes overwhelming, remember that Christ Himself often withdrew to pray, to seek the Father's guidance, to preserve His own soul. If He, the Son of God, valued sacred space, how much more should we honor the temple He has placed within us? The moments of quiet, the steps taken away from draining influences, the careful discernment of who we allow into our emotional and spiritual corridors. All of these are acts of devotion, acts of worship, and acts of obedience. So if today you feel the nudge to create space, to step back, to guard what is sacred within you, respond not with fear, but with prayer. Respond not with hesitation, but with trust. Comment now if you hear that whisper, if you sense that this is the season to honor the temple of your heart. Let your affirmation be a witness to your own spirit. Let it confirm that you are ready to walk in wisdom as well as love. Your presence here tells me that the message has touched someone. It reminds me that there are hearts actively seeking to align with God's guidance, not passively enduring. And I thank you for allowing me to walk beside you in this truth, for sharing this space of reflection and obedience, and for trusting that guarding your heart is not contrary to Christ's teaching, but in perfect harmony with it. For your soul's peace is a sacred responsibility, one that reflects His care, one that strengthens your faith, and one that equips you to fulfill the calling He has placed upon you. So embrace this season, step back with prayer, and walk forward with confidence that protecting your heart is not selfishness, but sanctification. There comes a moment in every life when the desire to defend our name becomes almost unbearable, when our minds replay conversations, rewind scenarios, and rehearse explanations as though doing so might somehow undo the sting of injustice. We imagine ourselves standing before others, finally proving that we were right all along. Yet Scripture carries a gentle but startling command: do not take revenge. Leave room for God to act. To trust God as judge is not an invitation to apathy, it is a summons to courage. It asks us to step away from the courtroom of human opinion and allow the King of Heaven to render His verdict in His own time. This is not easy, for human instinct rebels at the thought of restraint. David knew the sharp bite of injustice. King Saul hunted him, lied about him, and sought to destroy his calling. There were moments when David could have ended the conflict by force, yet when the chance came, he stood quietly behind Saul in a cave and refused to strike. He whispered, "I will not lay a hand on you. Let the Lord judge between us." That decision shaped not only his destiny, but his soul. He chose reverence over revenge. And in that choice, he found an unbreakable peace. Perhaps you too have been wrong. Perhaps your name has been dragged into shadows. Your instinct may cry out, make it right, demand retribution. Yet the Spirit invites you to let God write the ending, to release the tension that drives your thoughts to obsession, to place your claim in the hands of one whose justice is perfect and whose timing is flawless. When we cling to our own justice, we often become what we despise. Bitterness carves deep lines into the heart, robbing us of joy, robbing us of clarity, robbing us of the lightness of spirit that comes from walking unburdened. But when we surrender the need to be understood, something extraordinary happens. Our hearts remain soft instead of hardened. Our eyes stay fixed on Christ instead of drifting toward the offenses around us. And we move forward without chains, free to love without reservation, free to serve without distraction, free to live without the corrosive weight of resentment. This surrender is not weakness. It is spiritual boldness. For to walk past the opportunity for revenge and into the arms of God requires strength few ever attempt. Yet those who do discover a freedom unknown to those who keep score, a peace deeper than understanding, a security that no insult, no betrayal, no false accusation can shake today. If your heart longs to be vindicated, remember this: the one who saw every betrayal, every false word, every silent tear has already begun his work. He notices the small injustices, the whispered lies, the moments when your reputation was maligned. He is not indifferent. He does not sleep. He does not overlook. His attention is precise and eternal. You need not force what he has promised to finish. You need not intervene to correct the narrative. He will lift you at the proper time, and until then, walk with quiet dignity. Trust that the justice handled by pierced hands will never miss its mark. When others celebrate their victories over you, when they laugh at what they think is your failure, remember that your victory is already secure in God. The one who orchestrates the unseen, the one who writes history on a canvas beyond the eye of man. Let this assurance settle in your bones. Let it quiet the restless plodding of your mind. Let it steady your heart. In moments when anger and frustration threaten to rise. For the act of surrender itself is holy. It reflects the character of Christ. It models the patience, the mercy, the long-suffering that God exercises toward all of us. It demonstrates a confidence that the final verdict belongs not to fleeting human opinions, but to an eternal judge who measures hearts and weighs motives. And in that confidence, you discover that revenge, though tempting, pales in comparison to the joy of leaving the outcome in God's hands. The freedom that emerges from restraint is unlike any victory won by force. It is not loud. It is not applauded by men, yet it echoes through eternity. It shapes your character, fortifies your spirit, and aligns your life with the eternal purposes of God. So when slander hits, when betrayal stings, when the world's court seems stacked against you, do not rush to defend your name. Do not spend your days strategizing payback. Instead, take a deep breath, step aside from the temptation to strike, lift your eyes heavenward, and remember David in the cave. Remember Christ enduring the accusations of the Pharisees. Remember that strength is revealed in restraint and victory is perfected in patience. Let every whispered prayer, every silent surrender, every refusal to retaliate become a testament to the power of God's justice. Let your life bear witness to the truth that divine judgment far surpasses human cleverness. That letting go of the need to prove yourself secures a peace that vengeance can never give. And in the quiet of your obedience, in the restraint of your spirit, you will find that God's work in you is already accomplishing what your anger and plotting never could. Walk confidently, walk humbly, walk securely, knowing that the one who holds your life in his hands will not fail to honor you, will not fail to vindicate you, and that the timing of heaven is always perfect. So release the desire to take matters into your own hands. Release the need to control every narrative and trust the one who holds all things For there is no injustice he cannot set right, no lie he cannot expose, no heart he cannot defend. And in that trust, in that surrender, you will find the unshakable peace, the quiet power, and the lasting joy that comes from knowing that your life is safe in the hands of the God who sees all and judges perfectly. You are not nothing. Someone may have tried to convince you that you are forgettable, replaceable, unworthy of notice. Perhaps they passed over you at work. Perhaps they spoke of you as if you were not in the room. Perhaps even someone you loved convinced you your presence was a burden, not a blessing. Listen closely. Your life is not a mistake. Your story is not a footnote in someone else's book. God does not overlook what the world forgets. It says in hidden places, He kneels beside you when no one else will, and calls you mine again and again and again. I have watched many souls bow under the weight of being ignored, and in that quiet despair, they begin to believe the lie that heaven has also turned its face away. Do not accept that lie. Your name is written upon eternal hands. Your value is not born in applause. It was forged at Calvary. So stand, even if your knees shake. Respond with grace. Draw your boundaries. Bless your enemies. Remain silent when silence speaks louder than rage. And above all, remember who you are. Not because others remember, but because God does. In a world screaming, "Look at me," you will shine differently, for you are looked upon by the one whose gaze gives life. There is a peculiar beauty in walking through life unseen by crowds, but known deeply by your Creator. That is the secret known by saints who change the world without regard for earthly praise. Let every step you now take be a declaration that you refuse to live captive to people's blindness. Heaven has marked you as chosen, as treasured, and as essential in His unfolding story. Though you believe it, will you dare to live as one who is already fully seen, already deeply loved, already eternally safe? Every unnoticed effort, every silent tear, every moment of quiet obedience is not overlooked. It is being carefully recorded in the ledger of eternity. The one who formed you remembers your first breath, your first tear, the laughter that broke through childhood, the prayers that rose before you even knew how to articulate them. Your life has been watched with intention, your growth nurtured with care, your failures never wasted, your victories never fleeting. In the eyes of the world, you may seem small, invisible, inconsequential, yet in the heart of God, you are monumental. Every hidden act of kindness, every word spoken in love, every choice to endure when endurance seemed impossible, it all matters. It all counts. You are not defined by neglect. You are defined by the Creator who molded you in secret, who breathed life into your lungs, who placed eternity in your soul. And because of this divine attention, you have worth that no human oversight can erase. So rise from the shadows of those who have ignored you. Stand tall even when the room feels empty. Walk confidently, even if your steps feel unnoticed. Speak boldly, even when no applause follows. Your courage is measured not by the eyes that watch, but by the obedience that flows from a heart aligned with heaven. Remember that those who impact history rarely do so while the crowd cheers, often the ones who shift the course of nations, who change lives, who embody miracles. They do so in quiet corners, behind closed doors, away from public validation. Their influence invisible to the masses, yet monumental in the eyes of God. Imagine the saints, the prophets, the quiet servants whose names have become immortal. They were overlooked in their time, misunderstood in their moments, dismissed in their workplaces. Yet their faithfulness to God ensured that their unseen labors produced eternal harvests. Your story can be the same. Your efforts can ripple through eternity even if no one on earth notices. Do not let temporary disregard convince you that your presence is inconsequential. When the world ignores you, heaven leans closer. When human eyes fail to see you, divini eyes fixati. The Creator who counts the stars counts every tear, every heartbeat, every choice to remain steadfast when the temptation to give up was strong. Your life matters infinitely more than you realize. So dare to believe it. Dare to live as if what God sees is the only approval that matters. Dare to act with courage, to love without expectation, to give without guarantee, to stand even when your back aches from carrying unseen burdens. Imagine the power released when you stop seeking applause and start seeking alignment with the one who made you. The liberation that comes when you release the need for human validation and embrace your identity in Christ. It is profound. It is transformative. It is the secret to living a life unshakable by neglect or dismissal. So do not shrink. Do not hide. Do not diminish your brilliance to fit into the shadows cast by others' blindness. Instead, shine with the quiet confidence of one fully known by God. Let your presence, even if overlooked, radiate significance. Let your faith, even if questioned, radiate strength. Let your obedience, even if unnoticed, radiate glory. And in each moment, whisper to your soul, I am seen, I am loved, I am safe. Let these words anchor you when the world whispers otherwise. Let them remind you that you are cherished in ways that surpass comprehension. Your life is not forgotten. Your story is not secondary. Your heart is not too small. Your impact is not limited by human sight. Trust in the God who watches. Trust in the God who knows. Trust in the God who called you by name before you were even born. And in that trust, take your next step boldly. Walk forward with faith. Act with courage. Love without measure. And above all, remember this truth unwaveringly. You are not nothing. You were never forgotten. And you will never be unseen by the one whose eyes never miss a single detail, whose hands never fail to hold you, whose heart never stops loving you, and whose purposes for you cannot be thwarted by human oversight. So stand, beloved, and embrace the life that has always been meant for you, fully visible to heaven, even when invisible to the world, fully treasured, fully chosen, and fully empowered to fulfill your God-given destiny. And in the next moment, as you step forward, remember that what was once hidden is now held securely in the gaze of the Creator who delights in you. For you are seen, you are known, you are loved, and you are eternally safe.